Hello, sweet creatures. I want to talk about stamps, but more specifically, I just kind of want to show you all of my handmade stamps. But we're also going to talk about how I use stamps, both handmade and store-bought, thrifted, forged, in my grimoires. And then I'll also show some examples of how I use them in artwork. So we're gonna start with a grimoire, and I'm just gonna show you like some of the ways I've used stamps. So on the front here, right away, I have this store-bought stamp. It's a little triskel, if you can see it at all very well. I have also painted over it, just to add little corner details. But I use stamps a lot, and it started with, I started carving them with an X-Acto knife, and I'll show you those examples first. I also use lino cut prints. So these are both lino cut prints, which are kind of just like big stamps that you need different type of ink to get to work super duper well. But I just wanted to show you like some of the ways I'm using stamps in my grimoires. So here on this page, I've used some store-bought stamps to create a background or add stars, and that's one of my handmade ones, one of my first handmade ones. And here again, the same one. This grimoire is pretty old. That's another one I've made. I just use them to add detail. I use them to create sigils, to create backgrounds. Let's find another example. That's the flower stamp again. I make mass quantities of ephemera like this here with my stamps so that I can use them in my grimoires. This stamping pattern was made using modeling clay. I make basically like ephemeral stamps that only last so long because it slowly smooshes into nothing. If you were a subscriber to Art for a Spell, I had a whole tutorial on that. That'll probably migrate over here or potentially over to Patreon if I create one in the future. But I'll use them for rhythm. I'll use them for building up meaning. I'll use them for backgrounds. I'll use them as elements. This is a stamp, my skull bat, which is an ancestral artist spirit. I have some skull stamps here, but you'll get an introduction to all of the stamps I've made. Here on my dark grimoire, there's a stamp right on front. I used it to embellish the cover of the grimoire. Once again, we have a lino cut. This is actually half lino cut, half speedy carve material. So lino cuts are made with linoleum, and I make most of my stamps with either speedy carve or erasers because erasers are really affordable, and sometimes they come in cool shapes which can make them useful. So that I wanted to be able to change out what the tombstone says. Currently I just have the bookplate version, which you can buy on my Etsy if you're interested. The other bookplate, the Sacred Heart bookplate, is also on my Etsy if you're interested. Shameless plug. This one changes out, and I also have R.I.P. My Dignity because my partner and I thought it was funny. But let me know if you want to see that in the Etsy. I don't know how I'd sell it. I don't know if I'd sell it as like a sticker. I've made stamps for friends. This death stamp, death key stamp, was a gift to my friend Alexander Speaks. They make amazing videos and you should go check them out. They will be linked in my description. You also see a lot of different Art Witches ephemera in here. I basically link everyone who's inspiring that I can think of in my description. I'll use stamps to create borders, and I've made stamps specifically for using to create borders. I use stamps, and you can't really see it super well. This is also a stamp, but I use stamps on gel blocks, and we'll probably do a video of that in the future because I love playing with the gel block prints, to lift away some of the ink on the gel block so that the black paper here was showing through. And these are all skulls, but you can't really see them because they're covered up with my stuff for my death page in this grimoire. This grimoire is very unfinished, so you'll see tabs and blank pages everywhere. And then another thing I did on Art for a Spell is I made stamps that mimic my osteomancy set. And that, again, will maybe be on here, maybe on Patreon if I create one in the future. And final use I want to talk about, I made a stamp to label my spell work, my art magic spell work, or to label my grimoire. I don't have table of contents in here, but just to remember, like, oh, this was a alchemical spell work, and this was a blood magic spell working as well. But I'm reminded that this was a spell work, or I have one that's a divination or luck. So that's a little look into my books and an introduction to how I use stamps. And I'll get some more examples, but I just want to sift through and show you some. So the first ones I want to show you are ones that were made to be sigils. So I'm gonna zoom you in for this section, actually. Okay, my cat Minky is very insistent that he gets some love right now. So we're gonna hang out with him too, and you may see his sweet little face popping in. But that's important because he is one of the stamps, so it's just perfect. So starting out with sigils. Oh, goodbye, Mink. Have fun. Starting with sigils, I have this protection sigil I made. So I did this by combining symbols of protection, and I can reuse this on spells I want to add protection to, or to symbolize doing protection working. And I just combined a bunch of symbols. So the pentagram, of course, a full moon, a crescent moon, and an ever watchful eye. And this I created specifically when I decided to add a spirit board within my grimoire. And my partner was like, we are not leaving an unprotected spirit board in a book. And I was like, you know what? That's a valid concern. We will cover that up. Especially in our last house, which she recently informed me that the malicious presence I had felt in that house, I wasn't alone feeling it, but she felt like we couldn't do anything about it. So she tried to stop me from doing workings. But there's that protection symbol above the spirit board within my book, between it and the planchet, so no spirits are unnecessarily contacted. But I also have my Radiant Health and Healing sigil. So I created this with the intention to draw radiating lines out of it to add healing intention to things. And I created a miniature version of it. Yes, miniature version of it to use to stamp onto my pill bottles so that I could add healing energy to my prescription medications. I just thought, how could I get a sigil on this? And then it's glued on a cork so that I don't lose it and it's easier to stamp. I need to do this with a lot more of my super tiny stamps. Just hot glue them onto the cork. But it does make them bulkier to store. This is what I created for my new moon workings. I used to do a working every new moon, setting intentions, honoring the season, etc., etc. So I created this so I could change the color of the dark moon. Guess I could also use this for full moon workings too. But that's its purpose, so I could change the color inside of it to match what I needed. This is one of the first sigils I created in stamp form, and this is a personal power sigil that was meant to be used repeatedly. Like all of my first sigils, it's made out of a pink dollar store eraser, and it was made with an X-Acto knife, so it's not the most precise thing in the world. And the dollar store erasers I was using have started disintegrating, so I'm slowly needing to replace all of them. Which brings us to this little guy, which is my Blessings of Rain sigil, to kind of capture the blessing energy that rain brings. I grew up in Arizona, and Arizona is in a drought. Surprise, surprise. But rain always felt like such a blessing. And I still feel that way, even though it's been raining for weeks. Every drop feels like a wonderful blessing from nature, and just reminds me how beautiful the water cycle is. So I recently, because it is a eraser, I recently remade it on some proper speedy cut out of a little scrap piece. It's a little bigger now, it's a little smoother now. I'm definitely getting more skilled. I have a more proper tool. You can make stamps with an X-Acto knife and dollar store materials, but the speedy cut little carvers are really useful. So I recommend, if you can get those and then use the erasers, that's what I would do. Another sigil, and this is a more recent one on an eraser, not the dollar store kind, but I will let you guys know if this kind also starts disintegrating. And this is a flow sigil that I based off an Arthur Rackham illustration. Arthur Rackham is one of my favorite illustrators. You can check out his work online. On the line of sigils, I have this cube eraser. I think it's supposed to be scented. I'm not going to sniff it. But I used this to create little spell markers like you saw in my grimoires, to remind me what I was doing on that page, or to help me like flip through quickly. Like, I'm looking for a blessing working and I can find it again, especially with the like quantity of books, especially at the time that I was working through and creating. I definitely slowed down, and I think partially that's college and partially that's recovering from burnout. While trying to do full-time college, make that make sense. But yes, every symbol meant something. So a blessing working, a luck-based working, a growth or an earth working, divination, insight, and the one I showed you, an alchemical working. And I can also use these as motifs and sigils in themselves. So I thought that was neat. So I'm going to move on to things I've carved out of erasers, starting with the ones that I carved with an X-Acto knife. So some of my earliest stuff, I wanted to make a bone. You can see I didn't carve deep enough with the X-Acto knife to have the ink not pick up on these sides here. So it's not the best, but I was proud of it on my first try, and I still use it. It's a great little background stamp, but I need to stop using these so they don't disintegrate to nothing. And I've made an effort to record a lot of my stamps that are starting to disintegrate, that I've used a lot. I have a little star, and then a little goddess symbol, triple moon situation. And then I took a class on line cut carving and printmaking at my local art center. And while I was taking that class, I was having a really bad health week or so, and I didn't really want to get up from the living room, sit in the art room, be uncomfortable. My art room was small. I was sitting on a folding chair, which two of them collapsed while I was sitting in them, which was super fun. But what I did is I took a pack of the pink dollar store erasers, 6 of them and challenged myself to make as many stamps as I could, just as a way to pass time. And these are some of my favorite stamps still. And I think I have 1 pack of ephemera with these still in them, but these are the stamps that have gotten the most use and has started disintegrating the most. But it's cool to see my carving skills develop, even though these materials aren't that great. And I carved a bunch of bottles. No particular reason. This is a piece I would use for edging, creating borders, not edging. A little magic in a little serif font, another bottle, a little plant in the soil with roots. Another bottle. This was meant to be a dragonfly wing in a bottle. Let me know if you see it. I don't think I executed it very well. Another tiny bottle, a storm in a bottle, a bug. This is the alchemical fish symbol that you see in like alchemical palms in like alchemical books, and I love the fish. Another bottle, another bug, and a moon in a bottle. A little mountainside, another little bottle, another little border element, a snake border element, a little moony scene, another bottle that I've used so much I don't know if you can even see it. That's a little eyeball in a bottle. And I took some of these stamps and I stamped them and framed them in teeny tiny little frames and sold them at a small work show, and it was the only time I've ever sold out of all of my artwork in a show. I think it's the first time and the only time I've ever sold anything in an art show, actually. One woman came in and bought them all. I brought my friend over. I was like, oh my gosh, come look, my art's in a gallery, and I'm so proud, and it was all gone. This one's a paint bottle. I use this all the time. I definitely need to remake this on a more robust material so I can keep using it. And along the theme, I have a pencil on one edge, a paintbrush on the other, and an inkwell that I don't use very often. But I want to remake all of these elements probably separately so I can keep using them. Because like I said, these are disintegrating. Other erasers. This is from the same period. This eraser was in my great-grandma's art supply collection, and I didn't want to use it as an eraser, so I used it as a chance to practice by copying illustrations. So this was an illustration out of a vintage book, a girl's book, and this is based on an illustration of a vase, but I made it a little pot and I decorated it, and it's holding paintbrushes, and this one's holding up great, so I'm pretty sure it's the dollar store pink eraser material. Other dollar store erasers, the really cheap novelty erasers, like the ones that don't work as erasers, work great as stamps. They work great as stamps. So other erasers made from novelty erasers. We have the flower stamp you saw repeatedly. This is one of my earliest ones I made, and this like clear jelly plastic eraser material is robust for stamps. They hold up. This one's a teapot. And I'd like to remake or maybe make a new teapot because I can see some of my mistakes in here. I'm still gonna keep using it though. This one's more recent because I think these come in like packs of 2 or 3. And it's a snail that I'm going to talk about more in a little bit, but I wanted to include it in the eraser category. This is a sigil made on the back of a donut eraser because I didn't want to have to get rid of this like material that the ink would stick very well to. And this is my Light My Creative Fire sigil that I created for Art for a Spell. Again, that may eventually be up on Patreon or on here, but I'll add in a little extra intro to explain why I'm addressing you differently in that. Another novelty eraser is my skeleton bat, creative ancestor spirit, and jump scare. I carved this side first, and I decided he was 1, too scary, and 2, I carved off his nose. So I had to try again. And luckily, these novelty erasers, they're really dense, they're really robust. I was able to carve both sides, which means you can get 2 stamps for the price of 1 eraser. Or you saw with my, even if you have really cheap eraser material and you're really patient, you can carve pretty much every side of an eraser. But you may notice the strange shape and the hole in the side here. This was a My Little Pony eraser with the ponies posed together. But it worked for my skull bat, so I was happy to get some use out of this thing that I've had probably since I was a little kid, or from my Little Pony phase in high school. Probably my Little Pony phase in high school. Let's be perfectly honest here. I was trying out some different eraser materials, so I don't remember what brand of eraser these are, but they're a more expensive brand than a dollar store brand where you get 6 for $1. I guess $1.25 now. And I just wanted to create some floral motifs. Again, this is something I'd use for a border. And a key I'd like to attempt, and then alchemy, much like that magic stamp on that other eraser. And that is it for eraser stamps. So I want to move into animals. Specifically animals that I've made for my Window Cat painting series. So this is Window Cat, and he is based off of my cat Minky, and he's looking out the window onto a garden of lush, diverse plants and animals. And the whole Window Cat's Garden painting series is 1, please keep your cats indoors. I've talked about this before. But 2, to celebrate diversity in plant life and have fun with mixed media. So I use watercolor and stamps and pens and inks and crayons and whatever flights my fancy at the time. So this is the Window Cat, and I'll have a full video about that sometime in the future. I keep putting it off. This snail has not yet been featured in a Window Cat painting, but will someday soon. And yes, I know he's the same size as the cat. This spider was also created for the Window Cat series, and it is based off of the golden orb weaver that I had around my house in Virginia. A newer Window Cat edition, yet again have not yet been featured in a painting but will very soon, are these 2 fireflies. I wanted to have different angles so I could put multiple in the painting. I've never seen them alone, at least not here in Pennsylvania. I definitely saw lone fireflies a lot in Virginia. But these are my 2 little firefly guys. The cat can see at night. Out the window. I did attempt to make my own moth. So this whole series was started because I found a set of stamps at the antique store, and they were all handmade, and one of the stamps my honey said looked like a cat. And I've since retired it because I realized it was a petroglyph from the, oh gosh, I can't think of it off the top of my head. It was a Native American petroglyph from the Southwest, and I didn't want to continue to use that mountain lion in the context of a house cat. Not only did it feel like cultural appropriation, it felt disrespectful to the fear that a mountain lion can strike in a person, felt disrespectful to the peoples that created that petroglyph and their descendants. So I've discontinued use of those. I think I've only sold one of those paintings, but all the rest of them are gone now. So I have a moth stamp from that I've been using. that someone else made, and I was trying to slowly wean off of all of them, and this was one of my attempts, and it's not great. I don't really use it that often because I just don't like it. But hopefully I'll get better and I'll start making new moths and butterflies. This bumblebee I'm very proud of. I made it initially just for my bullet journal. I was like, I want a bee stamp just for me, but it became a star of the Window Cat series, and I've even made Christmas ornaments with the bee and the spider because I just thought they were so cute, so freaking cute. I love bees. I love watching bumblebees and carpenter bees dance around and do bee things. Another new addition to Window Cat are these teeny tiny little bats. I have them at 3 different angles so that they're distantly flying in the sky away from the window. And I'm obsessed with these. I think they turned out so well. They're a little goofy, you know, they still have the handmade look to them. I don't claim to be super great at drawing, and carving stamps is one of the ways I get around that, because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I have better control over it, or I also feel like that it turns out better when I carve it than when I like draw it. I don't know. These are the bats. And the final guy is so tiny, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it. I have a teeny tiny ladybug that I hide in the grasses of the Window Cat series. There's some paint chip on him. Teeny tiny, so small. Smaller than my thumbnail. Maybe that's the thumbnail of the video. I joke. Yeah, tiny little ladybug. So these are the creatures in the Window Cat world. And then I fill it with plants and glitter and pretty colors. But that'll be a future video. I promise this time. It's gonna be the next video. We're going to make some Window Cat paintings together. Alright, next section, we're doing skulls and bones and other such memento moris. So, starting with memento mori written out, I used this to create bookmarks with my skull plants collaged onto them, and I really loved how they turned out. And I think I ended up selling all of them, which felt really good. A lot of people came up and saw the memento mori. I had one girl like say like, oh, my brother is really into this sort of stuff, and that just lit up my life. But I really love how this turned out. I was getting a lot more confident with text, and you saw it in the grimoire. The skull plants, you've seen me make them before, and I decided that I needed to make 1 million of them. So in order to make 1 million of them, they are made out of collage material and stamps so that I can infinitely iterate, explore, expand, really do whatever I want with the Skull Plant series. And I'm working on a big one right now. It will probably get posted to Instagram, but also hopefully I have my own website up by then, and I will have a whole blog post talking about my process. But these are just skulls at all sorts of different angles. I wanted them to be cute. I wanted them to be a little cutesy. You know, we're remembering death, but also the leaves are covered in glitter. And these are collaged pieces of paper. It's not that serious. Life isn't that serious. We already saw the skull bat, but inspired by Corgan the Crone's butterfly skeleton fairy Halloween she did a couple years ago. I was like, what if instead of my bat skull I had a butterfly skull? And I love it. I love it. So that's those. And then part of Art for a Spell, I created a bunch of stamps that mimic the bones and objects in my osteomancy or charm casting set, so that people could like shrinky dink them down or use them as elements in their grimoires. And so here is a hip bone, and then I have a deer spike, represents a pain in the ass. Chicken bone. If you know what this is, you know what it is. It's from I think mine's from a muskrat. Most people get them from raccoons. They're a bit bigger. Gar scale. I don't like how this one turned out that much. I don't feel like it looks like a gar scale. I don't really use it as much as the other ones. I have a javelina tooth in my set. They're peccaries native to southern Arizona, and they're kind of vicious. Would not recommend running into them. I have a jawbone. Make sure you have a little bite. And then like other objects in the set. Coffin nail. A die. A seashell. We're back on my bottles. Tiny bottle. A tiny clothespin. A key. Another bone. A shark's tooth. We're getting real small. Forget the name of this bone. A bottle cap. I'm also not super happy with the way this one turned out. A token, like a gaming token from a theme park. This is a fish bone, like a spine, fish spine bone. This represents legal advice in my casting set. You may need some legal advice. And those are the elements of the casting set. Yes. I'm super happy with a lot of how these bones turned out, and I used them a ton. I actually ran out of pre-stamped ephemera bits of all of my bones. And now we're into kind of the miscellaneous. I have a bunch of stamps that I made to stamp onto jewelry to make some like handmade jewelry, and then I use them myself. So I have a bunch of sacred hearts, so like one with a flower, one with a flame, one with a knife through it, and I think I have all of this jewelry on my Etsy if you're interested. An eye. And then I made super tiny ones for earrings. So this skull earring, they didn't work out, so these never ended up on the Etsy, but it's a teeny tiny skull, so it's useful for loads of things. The eyeball and the heart go together as a little earring set, and I printed all of these onto washi paper, like nice thin beautiful paper that I decorated with watercolors, and then attached to cabochons, and they got set into jewelry so that it was like printed in watercolor but jewelry. And a sun and a moon together. And those are all the ones I made for jewelry. I made a heart, but it turned out to be a little too big, and I also have another eyeball that turned out a little too big. I don't know where it is. But this is so tiny, so tiny, so intricate to carve. But I like the challenge, and again, like I feel like I do better doing that than trying to draw things, and I don't know why there's that barrier, because if I can carve it, if I can draw it onto the speedy carve or an eraser and then carve it out, I feel like I could also draw it because I already drew it. But there's that like block in my head for it. I have this star reference stamp that I print on stickers and attach to Happy Mail to make sure it hopefully gets where it's supposed to go. A teacup to go with my teapot. We have all of the frames that I created for my bullet journal this year to create miniature itty bitty gallery walls, and I use them for lots of stuff still. We have a star that I created for my Winter Nights ephemera packs, and as a little replacement to the tiny star, because it is disintegrating yet again. This is a pumpkin stamp that I carved to look like a pumpkin. But the backside is a jack-o'-lantern, so I can reprint the jack-o'-lantern on it. I wouldn't recommend carving on an eraser like this. It's a little difficult to see what you're doing. It works okay though. I can't be too mad about it. And this is a new leafy border to replace the one on my disintegrating eraser stamps. And finally my moon, which I love dearly. I think she turned out beautiful. I really love that I gave her wrinkles. I think wrinkles are beautiful. I love her nose. I love her little, almost a double chin situation. I think it's adorable. I really love the way she turned out. And these are all of my hand-carved stamps. Another way I use them is I just use them to make mass quantities of ephemera, and I use that as decoration in my books. I'll use that as Happy Mail fodder or decorating cards like you saw in my last video. So I wanted to probably zoom out a bit and show you my box. And this is how I use up a lot of my like scrap painted papers too, is I stamp it or I'll draw on it, but again, I don't have a lot of confidence with drawing, so more than likely I'm just gonna stamp on it and hoard it. So I've been working through cleaning up all of my teeny tiny scraps and either getting them into my embarrassing scrap binder that you saw in my last video, or cutting them down and stamping onto them to be used in the future in the making of art magic. That way, as I say frequently, nothing goes to waste in my studio, or as little as possible. So that's a stamp tour. Do you want a tutorial on making stamps? Do you want a stamp-themed grimoire spread? Or a bunch of stamp-themed grimoire spreads? Let me know. Let me know if you liked this video. This is inspired, I don't know if I said at the beginning, but Bits and Bob's Divination did a tour of her handmade stamp collection. She will of course be tagged below along with many other inspiring people if you're looking to find more content. And I'm so happy you joined me today. I'm Galaxy Coop all over the internet. If you want to hear more from me, I try to post every other week. And I hope you will like and subscribe, and I will see you again very soon. Goodbye!